Hey YouTube, it's time to I thought I would go outside and pick a few carrots to make pickled carrots, and this is what I ended up with. So I am going to get an apron, wash some jars. These are going in pint jars, and we are going to make some pickled carrots. Oh my goodness. Lots of pickled carrots. And I'm going to make these two ways. We're going to do regular pickled with dill and some hot spicy with some cayenne red pepper flakes in there. So I will get all that done and I'll see you right back here in a minute. Before I get started on all the peeling and scrubbing and all of this that's going to happen here, because that is going to take a minute. I'll show you some of the tools that we're going to use. You can see my whole, like, oh my goodness. I'm going to need both of these pans are going to have hot water baths going eventually. But for right now, we are heating up a bunch of water in this one because we're going to be basically blanching the carrots once they're peeled. So they're going to start in there, and then I'll be using one of these for the brine. And a kitchen scale because we're going to need to weigh 2.5 pounds of carrots for each batch of brine that I'm going to make, which is going to be vinegar, water, and sugar, and some canning and pickling salt. We're going to peel some cloves of garlic. There's going to be a single clove of garlic in each jar, some whole peppercorns. You'll need your non-reusable canning caps and rings. We're going to use a Chinese strainer to get everything in and out of the water. We're going to have an ice bath going here at some point too. Your jar lifter, which you pretty much can't do without, canning funnel, and then of course a ladle and another strainer so that when we strain the brine over the jars, we're not getting any bits and pieces. And then I'm going to go out in the garden and pick some fresh dill to go in because these are dilled pickled carrots. And then once I have these all washed and peeled, I'll show you how we blanch them and move on to the next steps. While I'm working on all of this, I thought we'll chat a little about some tricks that I've learned over the years doing these, because I've been making pickles since, I don't know, 1993. First trick I learned, I plant a lot of carrots in a small space, and if you know carrot seeds, they're very small, and you just do a little line of them and they all sprout up and you thin them. I don't do that. I wait until they're this big, and then I thin all of those, and you end up with a bazillion pickle-sized carrots, which is great. So what's left in my garden now is nicely spaced bigger carrots. Like, these are twisted together because look how close they grew. But I left the ones in the ground that were more that size, and then I'll pull those next to can them, pressure can them as just canned carrots for dinner. So what I like to do is give these a quick scrub under cool water with a brush, and then I cut off all the tops out in the garden and just give the tops right to the chickens because there's no point bringing them in and then taking them back out. And then leave that little bit of a top so you can hold on to it while you're peeling. And that way you can get the whole carrot without nicking your finger. And if you don't have a top, I'll show you a trick for that. Trim off the little root bit and trim off the top and set that aside. And I'm wanting to get 5 pounds for this first batch. That is a double batch of this recipe. If you have a carrot that, let me see if I have one that does. Okay, here's one that it doesn't have a top left on it. So let's give it a quick scrub. And for these, because you always end up nicking your finger with the peeler, I just hold on to the end and just do the small end first, then flip it around and do the bigger end. And that way you're not in any way going to get close to your finger with that. Trim off your two ends. And that, if you have the right size carrot, that's the right size to just go right in a pint jar and make a perfect little pickle. So you don't have to do a bunch of trimming and fancying them up to make pickled carrots. That is why I like to pick them when they're that perfect baby carrot size. So you can actually just pickle these and put them right in the jar. This size, I'll probably cut that in half, so you'll end up with 2. So I'm going to turn on a podcast or something to do while I scrub and trim my way through the rest of these carrots, and I'll be right back. So there's 2.5 pounds peeled and ready to go, and I have some hot water in a pot here. And so what we're going to do is put these in simmering water, so not boiling, and we're just going to let those cook. And while those are in the hot water, we're going to make a quick ice bath, which is just water with some ice cubes in it, and we're going to take them right out of that and into an ice bath to stop them cooking. Just like that. When the 5 minutes is up, we're just going to use our little strainer, strain them right up out of the hot water and right into the ice bath. And then I'm going to leave that water hot because I'm actually going to make another batch right behind this. I'm going to be making batches all day. Actually, you're just getting to see the first batch. And we're going to let these sit in the ice water for 3 minutes. So while those are sitting, I will go ahead and get the brine started over here in this other pot. And since this is a double batch, we're going to start with 5 cups each of vinegar, just plain white distilled vinegar. Make sure it's 5% acidity, and 5 cups of water, like that. And to that, we're going to add a cup of just, I use organic sugar, but regular sugar. I don't know about substitutions, so I don't know about that. If you do, anybody that pickles with substitutions, let me know. A cup of sugar and 4 teaspoons of canning and pickling salt. And we're going to put this over a medium-low heat, and I'm just going to stir it until that sugar dissolves. And then once the sugar's dissolved, we'll bring this up to a boil. And then that's done, and we can turn the heat down and let it sit. The carrots are ready to come out of the ice bath, so I'm going to pull them out, drain them really well, and as soon as this is boiling, we'll put them in. And I just put them in a colander that's set over a bigger bowl, just so they have something to drip down into. And if you're working in batches like I am today, many batches, we're going to set that aside until this syrup boils and they can go in. Meanwhile, I'm going to get back to the sink and start scrubbing, peeling, and trimming the next batch. And we'll see. When I get done, I'll tell you how many batches did I get? How many jars did we get out of that giant basket of little carrots? Here's another little trick. Since I don't like a special tool for each separate thing, to peel a clove of garlic for each of these jars, I don't have a garlic peeler, and I don't feel like doing it with a knife. Take a garlic clove, trim off the little hard end, and if you just give it a hard roll in your hand, ta-da, peeled. No more special tools for that. Thank you, Martha, for showing me that trick a long time ago. While we're waiting for the syrup to come up to a boil, I've just set aside the pot that I blanched the carrots in, and here is a pot of just my big canning pot. We won't be pressure canning. I'm going to add some water. This is just going to be a hot water bath, and we want to have enough water in here to come up to 2 inches above the level of the top of the jars once they're in the water. What's nice about these is they don't need to be a boiling water bath. These are going to process at 180 to 185 for 35 minutes, which is due to my altitude. So if you're water bath canning or pressure canning, check your altitude, because the time given is going to be based on basically, I think, whatever the standard altitude is. If you're above it, you're going to need to change your timing. So mine is 35 minutes. So we're going to get that up to 180 to 185. And we're not going to put the carrots in this syrup once it boils. We're just going to put them right in the jars and put the syrup in over them. That syrup is almost to a boil, and I've got my jars here. And I went out to the garden. I don't have enough dill to do fresh dill, so I normally would do a sprig of dill. I'm going to do a teaspoon of dill seed instead, because I don't feel like going around looking for dill out at the store. So we are going to get some of these jars ready, which means we're just going to put in a garlic clove, 1 teaspoon of dill, and 3 peppercorns in the bottom of each jar. And then we're going to put carrots in. A double batch should make 8 jars, so I'll go ahead and get 8 jars ready. And you could add more, more pepper if you want. And I will add a little bit of crushed red pepper flake. If I'm going to make them hot-ish, I'll literally just put like 1/8 of a teaspoon. Like if I'm making 8 jars, I'll make 3 that are hot and the rest are not, because we only, we like pretty mild things, and I don't want them to all be hot. And the syrup's almost ready, so you can go ahead and start putting your carrots in, because we're going to put the syrup right over these. If they're long enough, I will just put them in, kind of alternating the wide end and the narrow end if you can, and just kind of go in like that. What's also kind of fun, if you plan ahead and grow different colored carrots, which are really fun. You can go, get those ones that are a mix of like purpley red, yellow, orange. You get all these different pretty shades, and those make a really pretty jar of pickled carrots. So plan ahead. If you like to host big parties at the holidays, these are super fun to pull out and colorful. So they just make a fun addition to a pickle table if you're doing a party. And I pack them in fairly tight because once they get hot water on them and get going in the processing, they're going to shrink and you will find you have a lot of space. So kind of push them in here and there more than you would think, like kind of scrunch them in there, as it were, and add them here and there. And I literally kind of force them and work them in all the little nooks and crannies. And then I'll take the little tiny ones and just stick them in sort of up in the top, down in some of these little gaps. Because again, you'll see once the water gets on these, they'll actually kind of shrink down and you'll wish that you had put more in the jar. You'll want to fill it to a 1/2 inch headspace. So we're kind of there, and if you had a dill head in there, it would look nice because you could see that nice green dill. The syrup is boiling, so I'm going to go ahead and just turn it down and hold it, and I will finish filling these jars and then we'll put syrup over them. So we're just going to ladle the hot syrup right over the jars, and we want a 1/2 inch headspace. So we're going to come right up, and you can measure this if you're not sure and you're not good at eyeballing, like I am really not good at eyeballing stuff. Even though I've been canning for decades, I will sometimes get out a measuring tape and actually just measure, just to be sure that I'm not going over. If you're under, it's not as big of a deal. If you get your headspace too shallow, like if it's a 1/2 inch and you get a 1/4 inch, you risk having stuff boil out of your jars under pressure, especially when you're pressure canning. So try and make sure that you are not getting your headspace wrong. And the next thing you want to always do is take a butter knife, or if you have a bubble freer, and just go down in and jostle these around just a little bit, just to make sure you're releasing any trapped air that might be down in there, and then recheck your headspace after you do this, because you don't want to have any bubbles of air that will try to get out. See the bubbles going up right there? You don't want that to be the thing while the processing, especially pressure canning or water bath canning. You want to make sure you release any air that's trapped in amongst the product that you're canning. The next step is going to be take a damp washcloth, or I use a paper towel, and we want to make sure we wipe the rims really, really well so there's no food on these edges. Make sure your edges have no nicks and dings too. If you're new to canning at all, that is like first rule, because they won't seal if they have any chips at all. So they need to be either new jars or very carefully checked older jars. Then take your caps, and we're going to put one on each like that, and your rings. And you're not going to tighten these down really, really tight. We're just going to go to finger tight and then just give it a little nudge, like just till it stops, and then just a little push. We're not holding these on with, the fact that you were strong and screwed them on really tight. They just need to be held on so that they can have contact with the glass while the pressure is building in the water bath or the pressure canner, like that. And then you're going to take your jar lifter, because they're going into hot water, and we're going to carefully take them over to the water bath and place them in the hot water. And since we want the level of the water to be 2 inches above these jars, and that is above the water level, I'm going to need to bring water up to about right here. So we're going to add some water before we start the timer. So we're going to wait until the temp goes up and hits 180, and then I will set the timer for 35 minutes, and these will process, and then we'll take them out. After these have processed for 35 minutes, I actually turn the heat off and let them sit for 5 minutes in the water with just no heat under it. And we're going to just pull them straight up. Oh, look how pretty those look. Oh, gorgeous. And I'm just going to take them over and set them back in the corner, because we're going to be adding quite a few more to that. And this is the first bunch, and you can see the little bits of the red pepper flake down in there, so I will mark those as spicy carrots when the time comes. And I'll leave those to sit overnight and wait for the jars to all seal. You want to hear the little pop as these lids seal down, so that you know you've done the right job and that they're all ready to go in the pantry. And these will be so good to serve throughout the year for our family and at various different family parties. I hope this inspires you to try these. They're super easy to make, and they're so delicious. There's no reason to buy pickled carrots. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.